as a little demonstration today, I thought I would paint in this pear. It's called Blush Pear, and I got 3 of them from a very well-known supermarket, and I just think they've got such beautiful shape and colour that they're worthy of doing a little bit of observational painting work from. So I've got various colours. Principally I've got red and yellow, blue, lemon and burnt sienna, and I'm going to paint this pear really quite loosely. I think initially it's important to mix up this sort of base lime green that's on there. So for that I'm going to use the lemon, and I'm just going to add a touch of blue. These are paints that I've been using for other things, so they're already in my train. As always, you have to try out your watercolour on a piece of paper to know exactly what colour it is, and I think that's quite a nice colour for starting off. I'm going to move to a bigger brush because I want to keep this. I'm not going to wet the surface first, which I do sometimes. I'm just going to paint this on because I want to leave the highlights. You have to sort of make sure that you mix up enough paint, which I didn't do, but it doesn't matter. It's not sort of, because I want to paint this very loosely so that you just get the feel of this pear. I'm leaving that area there because that area is much lighter, and in some of the areas here I'm going to put lemon on, so you just get that nice lemony glow. But I'm letting the colours mix where they touch. I'm not being ultra precise, but I'm trying to get this lovely feel of the shapes going on in this pear. Where we come to the actual blush bit, I'm going to put a teeny bit of yellow. So this is more yellow now than lemon coming down here, so that underneath this we're just going to get the warmth of that lemon. Remove that stray hair off my brush. I noticed listening through, just as a sideline, some of my other videos that I've got a tendency to start sentences and not finish them. So you're going to have to forgive me for that. And it can be a bit of a challenge for yourselves to work out what I was actually going to finish the sentence off with. So this is burnt sienna. So I'm putting this in now down this bit here to get the blush coming in. I don't want it to be too wet, so I'm just going to dry my brush off a bit. I'm just going to take a little bit of the paint. It's got a little bit wet there, so I'm going to take a little bit of that off. I'm not going to be too fussed about whether I get other marks coming in, because I always think it's quite nice to have. And then I'm going to put this. One of the key things to successful watercolour painting is learning to understand how much water to have as opposed to how much paint. And it's not something, I don't think that's something that anybody can easily teach you. I think you just have to get on with it, have a go, paint it. No, so I'm just going to put a bit more there. As I said, I want this pear to be really, really nice and loose. I'm going to intensify the lemons a bit at the top here. I'm using quite a big brush. It's a number 10. It's a number 10, but it's a sable, so you keep, with the sables, you keep that lovely point on the end of your brush. Always worth investing in if somebody's buying you a special present. And then into that then, I'm going to put some red. Now, Cadmium Red, which is this colour here, which is what I'm going to use, is an absolutely beautiful colour, but it's very strong. So use it sparingly. I'm just going to put my brush on its side and drop a few bits into it so that it goes into that burnt sienna, but you don't end up with a stripe of the colour. And this down here on mine, it's quite, I don't know whether you can see it on the camera, it is quite wet. So I'm going to take the opportunity, because I've got it quite wet there, to actually put in some darker browns. If you mix blue, this is burnt sienna in the centre, if you mix a bit of blue with it, it does give you this lovely sort of dark brown, but it's got a richness to it, which I really, really like. So I'm just going to put a few hints of that down here. You can see how wet it is, but that will bleed now into there. And the same, I'm going to take a little bit of that brown and put it in with the green that I originally mixed up, so that I can give this shadow coming into here. And again, I'm going to use the brush on my side, on its side, just pop that in. I'm keeping it all really quite loose, which is how I like to paint. You can add more bits of different colours if you feel that it needs a bit more intensity in places. So I'm putting a bit more red in so that we don't lose that lovely blush that is on the pear. And then I'm going to mix up, this bit here is slightly drier, this is still quite wet down here, so I want to leave it. In fact, I'm just going to take out, you can do this with your brush or with some kitchen paper. I'm just going to take out the edge, because I can see, you probably can't see it because of the camera view, but I can see a little bit here that is actually still lime green. So keeping my brush quite dry, I'm just going to mix up a little bit more of that lime green that we mixed earlier. You may still have yours in your tray. I have, and I'm going to pop that in there, and I'm going to let the wet of the above run into it, but I'm not going to play with it because I don't want it to go mucky, which it can do. And now while it's damp, I'm just going to lift out a few areas of white here to just give it a bit more colour contrast. So as you can play with watercolours as you do them, as long as you don't scrub away at them and muck about with them too much, because they do not like that. So I'm just softening that line around there, and I'm going to put a bit more ready colour into it. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow with Payne's Grey down here, so that you can see, and where that comes up to the pear, the bottom of the pear will be the same tonal value. So I don't want to lose that off the corner of the camera. That comes into there. Just smooth that around because shadows are quite smooth. And then I'm going to take a smaller brush and paint in the stem. So again, I'm going to go back to my burnt sienna, and I'm going to put some more yellow with it so that it becomes more goldeny brown to pop some detail in on here. So I'm just going to pop some little bits of detail there. And at the very top, it's dark again. So we'll mix a bit more blue with that and give some little dark tips at the top. Gone quiet. I'm looking for my water. I've put it in a different place on my work table and I'm not going back naturally to where it is. So then I'm just going to put some bits of detail in here. Be careful not to have it too wet. Where I put it on there, I've just put it on too wet here. So I'm just taking it off a bit and then I'm going to put it back in. In fairness, it depends as well what paper you're using, because paper absorbs at a different rate. So I'm just putting in some bits there, a little bit darker to just give you the feel, or give the pear this feel of the knobbles on it, which are really quite nice. Just in there a little bit. Now that's slightly darker than I'd want, so I can, before it dries, just take it back a little bit. So you still get the feel of it being there, but I'm just going to pop a line underneath as well, here. So you just get the feeling that you can see where it's run into the one underneath there. Now, for this pear to work successfully, it has to have all these speckles put on. Now, we can't do that while it's wet. Sorry. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to just put a tiny bit more, as everybody who knows my videos knows that I never ever leave it. When I say I'm going to leave it at that, I never ever do. I'm just going to put a tiny bit more green here. It's virtually exactly the same colour green as I put on before, but because it's going on as a second layer, it's got a slightly different depth. And the same with a bit of lemon coming around here. Lemon is quite a strong colour. I just want to give it a bit more depth, but I like the way that that's all bleeding in together and giving a brightness to the pear. Let's just pop in a bit of lemon here. I'm being careful not to lose the little bits of white that I've left. I think watercolour is such a beautiful medium that if you let the white go altogether, you lose that lovely gloss that it has. I'm just deepening that colour up around there a bit, because when I initially painted it, it was just a little bit too wet. So I'm just adding more bits in. It's still damp, so it's still not going to give me a harsh edge, but it's just needed to have that put back in again. There. So I'll put that colour there. That is burnt sienna with a bit of red mixed in with it. And there we are. There she is, ready to have, or he, I don't know whether pears are male or female. Ready to have her speckles on, but we can't do the speckles. If you're painting on top and you as you go in with your brush, you find that it is wet, just spot it in. Don't try and brush it in, otherwise you're just going to move the paint about and it's just going to get into a mess. Just spot it in like that. There we have it. I'll just show you this one. This one is one that I painted earlier. Slightly different colourway, but you can see how I've put the speckles in, both with a brush and a sponge, and I've let it go over the edge slightly so that you've got that softness to the pear. So happy painting.